Welcome to TechNova Podcast.
Okay, so you know how sometimes you hear about something and you think, oh, wow, I am so glad I'm not in that
I
situation.
know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, well, that is exactly what we are diving into today. Two NASA astronauts stuck on the ISS way longer than planned.
It is a pretty crazy story, and we will be looking into why it happened, the science they did up there, and how SpaceX played a role in getting them back.
Right, because this is not just any old space mishap. It involves Sunita Williams and Butch Wilmore, and, well, it really shows how important private companies are becoming in space travel.
You are not kidding, and get this, it even involved the president and Elon Musk on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, we will definitely be talking about that, but first let's go back to the beginning. Williams and Wilmore went up to the ISS on a Boeing Starliner spacecraft back in June 2024. Pretty routine, right?
Yeah, you would think so. Short trips to the ISS are not that uncommon these days, but this one was supposed to be really quick, just a week.
And I think we all know it did not go to plan.
Nope, it definitely did not.
A week turned into months. What happened? Did they, run out of space snacks?
No, nothing like that. It was a bit more serious. The Starliner had some technical problems.
I am guessing that is not ideal when you're in space.
Yeah, no, it is not. The biggest issue was with the propulsion system. Think of it as the engine of the spacecraft, the thing that gets it moving and keeps it on course.
Oh, so, if you do not have that,
Yeah,
you were kind of just floating around.
pretty much, yeah. And it gets worse because there were also helium leaks.
Helium leaks like balloons?
Not quite. Helium is super important for the fuel tanks. It helps to pressurize them, and without that, the engines cannot work the way they should.
So a broken engine and leaky fuel tanks. What a combo. So they are up there, and their ride home is broken. What do they do?
Well, NASA had to make a choice. They decided to send the Starliner back to Earth without anyone on board. That was in September 2024.
So Williams and Wilmore just had to stay up there waiting.
Yep, until they could figure out a way to get them home. And this is where things get interesting because the president at the time, President Trump, said he told Elon Musk to get them back sooner.
Wow, okay, wait, but were they actually in danger, or was that just like a political thing?
NASA made it very clear that the astronauts were safe. They were busy working on research and maintenance. They were not just sitting around.
Okay, so no big Hollywood rescue mission, but still a tricky situation for NASA, and that is where Crew 10 comes in, right?
Yes. Crew 10 was always going to go up to the ISS, but instead of a normal crew change, they ended up being the relief team.
Okay, so who was on this Crew 10?
Let's see, we had two NASA astronauts, Anne McClain and Nicole Ayers, and then Takuya Onishi from Japan and Kirill Peskov from Russia.
Wow, a real international team.
Yeah.
And they went up in the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft.
That is right. They docked with the ISS in March 2025.
So for a while, it was a full house on the ISS.
Yeah, 11 astronauts in total when you include the crew that was already up there.
Yeah. I wonder what it was like when Crew 10 arrived. I bet Williams and Wilmore were happy to see them.
Oh, someone actually recorded Sunita Williams saying, "It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive."
Oh, that is nice. It is good to remember that even with all the science stuff, space travel is still about people.
You said it. So Crew 10 gets there, and there is this big handover. What was that like?
Yeah, I mean, what exactly do they have to do?
Well, it was kind of like a relay race in space. Crew 10 had to learn about all the experiments that were going on, how everything on the ISS works, the daily routines, everything.
I bet it is more than just learning where the space coffee maker is.
Oh, for sure. They had over 200 experiments to work on. They were pushing the limits of what we know about space, everything from how the human body works to how fire behaves in space.
Wait, fire in space? Is that safe?
Well, it sounds scary, but it is really important to know how fire acts in microgravity. That weightless feeling you get in space. Because if we want to send people on longer missions to places like Mars or build space habitats, we need to make sure they are safe from fire.
Okay, so playing with fire to prevent fires, got it. What other cool stuff were they researching?
They were looking at how microgravity affects the body, things like your bones and muscles and your heart. Because if we want to send people on really long trips, we need to make sure they stay healthy.
Makes sense, but what about our original astronauts, Williams and Wilmore? Did they ever get to go home?
Yes, they did. Once Crew 10 was all settled, and Williams and Wilmore and two others from the original crew boarded the SpaceX Crew Dragon Freedom capsule.
And they splashed down safely off the coast of Florida, ending their very long, unplanned space adventure.
Exactly. And, their return really highlighted how important companies like SpaceX are becoming in space travel.
Right, and that is something we will talk more about. Stick with us as we go deeper into what this means for the future of space exploration.
Absolutely no breaks here. We'll jump right into it and explore how SpaceX is changing the game for NASA and for all of us.
It is kind of amazing how what seemed like a big problem for NASA and Boeing actually ended up showing how important it is to have options in space.
Yeah, it is true. Like, you would not want to only have one airline to choose from when you travel. It is good to have options. And in space, well, that can be really important.
So more competition leads to more innovation, more ways to get things done. But, we talked about those problems with the Starliner, like the engine and the helium leaks. Can you tell us a little more about what happened there?
Sure. So the Starliner propulsion system, it is pretty complicated. It is not just one engine. It is a whole bunch of thrusters and valves and fuel lines, and they all have to work together perfectly to move the spacecraft.
So if one thing breaks, it messes everything up.
Yeah, pretty much. And we are still not 100% sure what caused the problem, but it was probably something wrong with one of those parts.
Mhm.
And the thing is trying to fix that stuff while you are in orbit. Well, it is really tough.
So no quick pit stop for repairs.
Nope, not quite. And then the helium leaks made things even worse. You see, helium is what they use to pressurize the fuel tanks so the fuel flows to the engines properly. But with those leaks, the pressure was all off, and that made the engine problems even worse.
Okay, now I understand why they brought the Starliner back without any astronauts on board. They needed to get it back to Earth to fix it properly. Does that mean Boeing is done with space, though?
I do not think so. They are still a big player in the aerospace industry, and they are working hard to fix the Starliner. But yeah, this whole thing did show that their program had some weaknesses. And while that was happening, SpaceX, well, they were racking up the wins with their Crew Dragon missions.
So they were kind of in the right place at the right time. They were ready to help out. And it is not just this one rescue mission. They have been taking NASA astronauts to the ISS for a while, right?
Yeah, since 2020, SpaceX has been NASA's main ride to the ISS. They have launched a lot of missions with astronauts, and they have been doing a great job.
Okay, but here's the thing. SpaceX is not like a government agency, right? It is a private company. So what does that mean for space travel in the future now that private companies are getting so involved?
That is a big question. It is a huge change for the space industry because for a long time it was all about governments, and now private companies are really shaking things up.
So is it like a new space race this time between companies instead of countries?
It kind of feels that way, and that has its good and bad sides. On the one hand, companies like SpaceX, they are really driven to be the best, and they are also very focused on keeping costs down, so they're pushing things forward.
So they are like the new kids on the block shaking things up and trying new things.
Yeah.
But what about safety? Is it a little scary to think that space travel, which is already so risky, is
Yeah.
being done by companies that, well, they want to make money?
That is a very valid point, and that is why it is super important to have a really good rules and regulations for these companies. Safety has to be the top priority, always.
And what about the big picture? Does this mean that only super rich people will get to go to space?
A lot of people are wondering about that. It is true that right now, space tourism is mainly for billionaires, but a lot of these companies, their goal is to make space travel more affordable for everyone.
So you're saying that someday going to space could be like going on vacation to another country?
It might sound crazy now, but that is what they are working towards. They think that if more people can go to space, it will lead to new inventions, new jobs, and it will benefit everyone.
Okay, I can see how that could be really cool. But let's go back to something we talked about earlier. Fixing a spacecraft in orbit is hard. But what about the astronauts themselves? Being stuck up there for so long must have been tough on them mentally and physically.
It definitely is a challenge. Astronauts train really hard to prepare for long missions, but being stuck in a small space far from home for that long, it is not easy.
It is like being on a submarine, except in space.
Yeah, that is a good way to think about it. They have to deal with being isolated and not having a lot of space or resources, and they know that they are in a dangerous environment. And then there's the whole microgravity thing, which can weaken your bones and muscles.
So it is not just about getting them up there and back safely. It is about making sure they are okay the whole time. And remember, in this case, their mission was way longer than they expected.
So how did Williams and Wilmore deal with all that?
Well, they are both very experienced astronauts, and they are tough, but even for them, it was hard. They had to adjust to the changes, stay positive, and find ways to stay healthy, both physically and mentally. Their training helped a lot, and so did their crewmates, and being able to talk to mission control back on Earth.
It shows how resilient humans can be. We can adapt and even thrive in really tough situations. And, it reminds us that space exploration, it's not just about rockets and technology. It is about human courage and our drive to explore. I agree with that. And I think it is also important to remember that all this talk about space travel, it usually focuses on the exciting stuff. But there are ethical questions too. We are talking about going to new places, maybe using their resources, maybe even living there permanently. Are we sure that is okay?
It seems like every time humans explore new places, we end up causing problems, even if we do not mean to.
That is true, and we need to learn from our mistakes this time. We need to have clear rules about how we explore space and how we use its resources. We need to protect space and make sure that what we do benefits all of humanity, not just a few people.
So we need to be good caretakers of space. We cannot just go around doing whatever we want.
Exactly, and we need to talk about all these ethical issues as we move forward with space exploration. Everyone needs to be involved, governments, companies, scientists, and regular people.
It is a big responsibility, but it's also an amazing opportunity. We're literally writing a new chapter in human history, and this time the setting is space.
And that is a chapter that is full of possibilities. Who knows what we will discover, what we will learn, what we will create as we explore space. The future is wide open.
And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive.
Mm-hmm.
We have talked about the rescue mission, the technology, the challenges, the ethics of it all. But where do we go from here? What does all this mean for the future of humans in space? What are the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead? We will explore all of that in the last part of our deep dive. So we have talked about what happened and what is happening now with space travel, but what about the future? What is next for humans in space? Is it just more experiments, or are we talking about like living on other planets?
You know, it really is amazing to think about. We are getting closer and closer to those sci-fi ideas becoming reality. I think the future of space exploration is full of potential. There's so much we can do and discover, but it is also a little scary.
Yeah, I mean, settlements on other planets, that sounds like a movie.
It does, but it could actually happen. Mars is a good place to start. It is not too far from Earth, and some scientists think it might have had life a long time ago, and we might even be able to terraform it, change it to make it more like Earth so humans could live there.
Terraforming that is wild. But let's be real for a minute. What are the big problems we need to solve before we start packing our bags for Mars?
Well, one of the biggest is how we get there. Our rockets now are too slow to travel between stars. If we want to go to other solar systems and get there in a human lifetime, we need something much faster.
Like warp speed or teleporting?
Maybe someday. But for now, scientists are working on other cool ideas like nuclear fusion rockets or even using antimatter. Those could get us closer to the speed of light.
Okay, so speed is one thing, but what about staying alive in space? It's not exactly a friendly place.
That is true. We need to protect astronauts from radiation. It is a lot stronger out there than it is on Earth. And we still have to figure out how to deal with the effects of microgravity on the body, like how it weakens your bones and muscles. And then there is the mental side of things, being on a spaceship for years or even decades that could be really hard on people.
So basically, we need to build a little Earth that can travel through space, a spaceship that can support human life for a really long time.
Pretty much, yeah. We need to figure out life support systems, growing, food recycling, waste, maybe even making artificial gravity. It is a huge challenge, and we need a lot of smart people working on it. Engineers, biologists, psychologists, everyone.
And I bet it is going to be super expensive.
It will be, but think about what we can gain. Space exploration pushes us to invent new things, and those inventions can help us here on Earth, too. Look at all the technology we use today that came from space research, like things in medicine and materials and communication.
It is true, they say the memory foam in mattresses was invented by NASA.
Exactly. You never know what amazing things we will discover when we explore space. And besides the practical stuff, there is also the fact that humans are curious, we want to explore, we want to learn new things. It is part of who we are.
It is like that feeling you get when you travel to a new place for the first time. It is exciting.
Yeah.
And you never know what you will find. But this time, the new place is an entire planet or even another star system.
That is what makes it so exciting. And I think as we go further into space, we will make discoveries that will change how we understand the universe and maybe even ourselves. But, you mentioned that the future of space is also a little scary. What are you worried about?
Well, if we start living on other planets, we need to be careful. We cannot just go out there and do whatever we want. What if we damage those planets or take their resources without thinking about the consequences?
That is a big concern. We need to learn from our mistakes and make sure we explore space ethically and responsibly. We need to protect those environments and make sure what we do benefits everyone, not just a few people.
It is like we are starting a new chapter in human history, and we need to make sure it is a good one.
I agree. We need to work together to figure out how to explore space in a way that is safe and ethical and sustainable. It is a big challenge, but it is also a huge opportunity.
Well, this has been a really interesting deep dive. We have talked about so much, a dramatic rescue mission, new technology, the challenges of space travel, the ethics of it all, and where we might be headed in the future.
It has been my pleasure, and I hope everyone listening has learned something new and exciting today. It just goes to show that space exploration is not just about science and technology. It is about what it means to be human. Our curiosity, our courage, our desire to explore and understand the universe.
And that story is still being written, so to everyone out there, keep looking up, keep asking questions, and never stop exploring. This is The Deep Dive, signing off.